Hey, we're going to be talking about designing a sword fight today. Sword fighting is iconic. The game industry is built on it. A lot of games have featured sword fighting over the years. A lot of film, TV, movies as well. It's truly a discipline that's captured the imagination, and I think that it could probably be translated into game design a little better than the way it is now. Now, as you see this picture right here, that's me on the right with the black hair. That's me sword fighting. I have been doing stage combat for over 20 years. I've performed it, I've taught it, I've lived it. I definitely know what I'm talking about here. It sort of makes me uniquely qualified to talk about the juxtaposition of sword fighting and game design together. Before we get going, let's just talk about tech aspects. Definitely want to use the Kinect here with this. It's a revolutionary design, it's a great product, it's still really new, it's in its infancy, but I think that we could totally push some boundaries by using motion control with sword fighting. Just a lot of things you can do with motion that you can't do with a controller. And then, of course, there's a question before we really get into this: is sword fighting fun in games? Kind of. Basically, when you're sword fighting in a game, you're doing the same thing as you're doing in a first-person shooter. You're aiming and then you're shooting. Only in sword fighting, you're aiming, then you're hacking and slashing. Sword fighting is a little bit more sophisticated. I think we can totally improve upon that. Now, sword fighting has been around as long as we've been able to make weapons. In the Renaissance, it really experienced a large blossom, a large growth in how it was presented. It became a lot more scholarly, more of a gentleman's game. Whereas you'd see movies like Braveheart with people running around hacking and slashing at each other. And in the Renaissance martial arts, you're focusing on the broadsword, the rapier, the buckler, small shield, cloak, things like that. It was very technical, and it was all very impressive once you became a master of that. I really want to try and emulate that because there's nothing more pretty than a sword fight. Sword fighting in games lately, these are some more popular offerings of the past year: Skyrim and Dragon Age 2, both completely different in how they present sword fighting, but it's still very hack and slash brawler. Not too much strategy in the actual sword play itself, which is a tragedy. Still, it's fun. Sword fighting in film, it is a little bit higher level than what we see in games. The Princess Bride, Troy, these films have fight scenes that are just known throughout the fight choreographer circles as some of the best fight scenes ever made. Very exciting, very energetic, people really love them. We need to emulate the intensity that sword fighting brings to films. Of course, the problem with that is that sword fighting traditionally is not this massive thing where you're fighting for 10 minutes and being very witty and there's a lot of exposition. It's more about 2 or 3 very impressive moves and then you beat your opponent. Sometimes both of you would die, even if you just got nicked from infection. The context of what we want to try and present here, we want to have like a theoretical game we want to work on to present sword fighting in. Here, let's look at something like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Just one opponent after another, slowly incrementing in difficulty until you get to the ultimate sword master. This is just sort of a framing for you. Now the design obviously needs to be improved. That's why we're here. So in terms of design, we need to look at viewpoints. We need to look at the mechanics of blocking, moving, and attacking. And we need to figure out how to integrate those best in motion control. So let's look at viewpoints first. Okay. First-person view, as you see in Skyrim, very effective. You're very up close. You can see everything that's going on right in front of you. The only issue is that there is no peripheral vision for you. You can't really completely survey the battlefield. So you may be able to be more accurate on a one-on-one level, but it's still not that beneficial for you tactically. Dragon Age 2, it has the overhead view or the backed view or the third-person view, depending on how you move your controller. This allows you to be more tactical, but not as precise. So what we need to do is combine those viewpoints in a way that lets the player fully immerse themselves. Now, players need to defend. With the Kinect, I suggest that people have 5 different areas to defend: the shoulders, the head, and the legs, each side. Very easy. If they put their hand in that general area, then the Kinect will sense it, and you can act accordingly. In terms of attack, it's basically the same sort of thing. There are 5 major attacks: either shoulder, the head, or either leg. Again, as long as you were in that general vicinity, the Kinect will sense it. The Kinect can be a little wonky. The great thing about this is that you don't have to be super precise. The Kinect can pick up kind of broad sweeping moments or motions. So, plus on that. Footwork's a little bit more difficult. What needs to happen is that the player needs to be able to control their footwork without actually moving themselves, because let's face it, that really doesn't work very well. There was just a recent survival horror game that tried doing that, where you would walk in place to simulate walking. Did not go over well, but we do have an answer to that. Now, let's talk about pivotal mechanics. The School of Defense. The first thing the player can do is choose how they want to fight. They pick an Elizabethan fight master, they learn that style, and then they proceed from there. All right. Pivotal mechanic number 2 is going to be about the tactical time mechanic that I've invented, where the player can pause the game, go into sort of bullet time, and then using hand gestures can tell their avatar in which direction they want to go. So step to the left, step to the right, step forward, step backward. And then once they've completed their motion, they snap back into the actual time of the game. And then pivotal mechanic 3 is alternating viewpoints, very important. Skyrim does that, it's invaluable. It lets you get in close and also survey the battlefield. It gives you a lot of different options. Now, blending these 3 mechanics together, the ability to choose your style, the ability to move accurately and quickly in a bullet time sort of area, and the ability to switch between viewpoints will all make for a great game. In its infancy, I think we can pull it off. Let's make sword fighting better. All right, thanks.